amount of or some motions tonight. So thank you for filling that form out. And I will be a little lenient if there's someone who hasn't had a chance to add something. We can be a little lenient in case of that, if there's any new information. So yeah, we're going to start with budgeting first. If Senator Hirschberger, would you like to preface anything about, I know there are some questions about the surplus that we're trying to have, or about funds that can be used. Anything you'd like to preface budgeting with?
Yeah, definitely. So here, I'll turn my camera on so you guys can see me. So basically, we're trying to set up a restricted funds category for student orgs that to be able to access later on next year. Basically, the point of that is that there will be more options for organizations that prior to this year have not spent over 80% of their budget. So again, the Finance Committee did not give an increase to any organization that had not spent over 80% of their budget in the past 3 years. With that, we still want organizations to have a chance to grow. So they will be able, if they spend their budget or if new things come up that they want to spend money on, be able to access those funds through a similar process that we do capital expenditures. And then they'll be able to sort of take that on through that process. Also, this is to make us more fiscally responsible. We've had a lot of wasted funds. This way, those funds that have been not spent in previous years are more collected and can be distributed to organizations that are more likely to use them. Finally, it also sets us up. We've had a lot of budget cuts this year. I know you all have seen and heard from organizations. Most organizations did receive a budget cut. This sets us up actually in a better place for next year. Next year, we will have a smaller budget of funds that we can distribute to student orgs. So it gets us all sort of closer to what that will need to look like next year to get us set for that. Cameron, I don't know if Cameron's on, if there's anything else he wants to add to sort of like what that should look like.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So yeah, what Jesse was saying is with the unrestricted funds, it's essentially a special allocation set aside by the Student Senate, very similar to capital expenditures. The purpose is we're trying to get rid of that huge leftover amount that we have every year by taking away from organizations that historically we know are not spending it. Jesse did a really good job on uncovering that. So if you guys have any questions over any organization history or any of the comments I made on the motioning slate, feel free to open the floor to me.
Also to clarify, so you are allowed to motion to take money from that pot, the leftovers. However, the Finance Committee, in going through, has deemed that the budget cuts that we made were necessary ones due to organization spending habits following the guidelines, which is why it's set aside. So again, Cameron, like you just said, did a really good job kind of explaining the reasoning and some of the more number side of behind some of what was asked for. And that's on the motions sheet as well, if you didn't get a chance to take a look at that. So we would prefer to keep unrestricted funds as full as possible, but you are allowed to motion to take from it.
Oh, and I can jump back in on what Jesse said. That unrestricted funds, there's a fine line where if you don't fund it enough, effectively what happens is it's just budget cuts. But if you overfund it, then you're taking money away from organizations where they can't do anything. So the sweet spot for this would be between 20,000 and 50,000. This year, right now, the Finance Committee set it at 20,000 since it's the first year, and we don't want it to be too much of a shock. But go any less than 20,000, and essentially it's just becoming budget cuts as the likeliness of using it drops for each 1,000 that you'll decrease.
Thank you, Cameron. Senator Hirschberger, did you add the tier 2 unrestricted funds to this?
Yeah, Cameron, can you explain why we can't merge those together?
So the funds cut from tier 2 will be going directly to unrestricted funds. The purpose is because if we were to include that in tier 1, and for whatever reason there would be an inconsistency in how budgets get handled in this tier, and then the next thing we know, people are just rapidly pulling from that fund, then all that money taken from tier 2 organizations that aren't spending it, that is set aside to actually encourage them to spend so they can access it, is no longer there for them. And it effectively you just cut tier 2 just to make tier 1 that much bigger.
Okay, all right, thank you. If that is all, we'll get right into it. So I do see a list of motions, and if you give me just 1 second. All right, and Senator Hirschberger, would you like to share? Yeah, perfect. All right. If anyone would like to make a motion specifically from the list, please mention in the comments or the messages. And you can just say, yeah, okay, that's perfect, Senator Zaki. You can speak.
All right, so I have the first motion on the list. I wanted to motion to move money out of line 18 of the VU robotics budget. It's listed as the VU, like VEX-U, which is a competition, robotics 2021 World Championship registration fee. The organization described this fee as being necessary if the team qualified for the World Championship. And given that they haven't done that yet, I thought that the money they would need, that registration fee, would best be pulled from the restricted funds that we are setting money aside to have for orgs to use next year. So I motioned to move $500 out of that line. It's $800 total into line 91 of Alliance's budget listed for their drag show for their booking fees. They sent in a form of concerns. And specifically for their drag show, each performer costs $500. So they wanted to have as many performers as possible. And right now they only have the budget to bring in 4, which would make the show substantially shorter than it usually is. So I motion that we move $500 into that line so that they can have at least 5 performers for the show, given that the show draws in around 300 students every year in attendance and is a campus-wide event that would serve our whole community.
Great. Is there any discussion on this matter? Senator Banky has a point of information.
Just to let everyone know, even though this is the first year that they've been competing, they already qualified for the World Championships for 2020. So this is something that's very, very likely that they're going to end up going to it again.
Thank you, Senator Banky. Is there any other discussion?
Can I respond to that?
Yeah.
I think it's very, it would be awesome if the team were to qualify, and it does seem like it's very likely to happen. But for now, since we have such limited funds to allocate, I think it would be better used to an event that services the whole campus and also is guaranteed to happen unless, I don't know, the Rona makes a return and we have no spring semester next year too. But that's my justification.
Yes, Senator Mariama.
If the team were to qualify, this would be something that would qualify for them to use those unrestricted funds, correct? They could have, if they did qualify for this, they could ask for that $800 to cover that once they do get their qualification. Is that right?
Yes, that's like a perfect example of what unrestricted funds is set up for.
Okay.
I want to be clear here, though, that just because an organization can request from unrestricted funds and are not prevented from doing so isn't a good reason to take money out of their budget. If they budget for something and give a good description of what they're going to use it for, and it's probable that they're going to do it, we should still be granting them that money for doing good budgeting. Just because they can go back and reach into the pot later doesn't mean we should be taking money out of their budget just because we think it should go somewhere else.
Thank you. Please, everyone, before you speak to the whole group, please make a message and then I'll call directly on you. But thank you, Senator McMillan. Yes, Senator Mariama.
Just to be clear, I think the argument that Senator Zaki was making was not that we remove it because they can find the funding in other ways. It's because they haven't qualified for it yet. And so that's unique to an organization, is that not a lot of our organizations apply for funding that is based on criteria that haven't been completed yet or is not 100% yet. So just from my side, that was the reasoning why this motion was made, not just because there's unrestricted funds.
All right, we have a motion to vote. Do we have a second? Great. All right. All in favor of moving $500 from line 18 of XU Robotics 2021 World Championship registration fee from VU Robotics to Alliance, line 91 drag show booking fees. Please, it should be please use that link that I sent in the chat, and I'll send it one more time to vote. It's not available. It should be available. Oh, wait, sorry. Now it should be available. Parliamentarian Magira, could you confirm, we only need the 7/8 vote for the confirmation of the final slate, correct? $2,600. Sorry, just one second. Sorry, Parliamentarian Magira. Did you hear my question? Is he on this call?
Oh, no, can you repeat that? Sorry.
Oh, sorry, I was just curious. Can you confirm that we only need the 7/8 for the final slate, correct? All the motions before that are just majority, right?
Yes, according to the guidebook.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, so the motion passes 18-7-1. All right. Senator Steinheiser.
Hello. I would like to move, one second, let me go to the page. I would like to move $1,800 from robotics line 171, ongoing org functions. You guys will notice that this is just a general line of the budget, to UPC's line 52, which is the spring concert. UPC benefits the entire campus. We saw that they sent us in a form of concerns, seeing as they got a budget cut this year, and it was a loss larger than $2,000. Robotics has an incredibly positive impact on our campus. I will not disagree with that, but they don't serve as large of a constituency as UPC. We were unable to hold Valpo Vibes this year, and UPC wants to make up for that next spring. That was their main concern in their request. I know Lily reached out to so many senators asking them questions about this. They really went out of their way to talk to Student Senate, and $2,000, it's not like, it's a reasonable request, especially for a line that the campus cares so much about.
All right. Is there any discussion on this motion? Sorry, Senator Zach. First, it would be a motion to vote and then a second. But
Oh,
first-
sorry. There would be a second on my motion
Oh,
before
yeah.
the motion to vote.
Okay, sorry. All right. Is there any discussion on this motion? Seeing none. Oh, yes. Senator Banky.
I just wanted to point out that what we'd be doing here would be almost a 20% cut for robotics, whereas it would only be, what is that, like a 2% increase? Not even that. It wouldn't even be a 1.4% increase for UPC. So we're talking about a huge cut for robotics for a relatively small increase for UPC.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, Senator Steinheiser.
With that, the general org functions and they list all of the different parts and everything, I've always been confused about why robotics doesn't go through CapEx for that because they're a tier 1 organization and they request supplies every year. So I guess can finance or the treasurers answer that for me?
Can I respond?
Yes, Senator.
Oh.
So we did actually, I think it was either at the beginning of this year or the beginning of last year, they came in and asked for some plastic parts so that they could rebuild some of their robots. And they were so disgusted with the entire process that they vowed to never do it again. So their e-board's turning over, but the CapEx process for robotics is very painful for them, and that's why they still request stuff. And also that's part of their ongoing functions. It's not that they're using this stuff, they're actually actively using it to build new robots year after year. So it's not just a piece of equipment that they're wanting to buy, that's actual hardware.
Thank you, Senator Banky. Senator Hirschberger or someone
Yeah.
else.
I just want to respond. So, and CapEx can be a little confusing, but it's specifically for one-time like replacement things. So typically it's used to like replace a computer or replace something that's been broken, something like that. It's not typically used for like ongoing purposes like that, which is why typically with robotics, the things that they need aren't like replacement parts or a new investment. It's a lot of smaller pieces, which is why it doesn't typically work through CapEx.
Thank you. And Executive Treasurer Ray, did you have anything to add, or is that good?
Yes. So the capital expenditures fund is solely for purchasing assets. The manner in which robotics uses their funds is not for assets. They're deemed expenses. So the difference is an asset, you buy it, and its course, the life of the asset is supposed to last beyond a given time period, like a year or so. An expense is solely, it could be something that could be deemed as an asset if used under a different tense. But an expense is solely something that occurs every year and happens within the year. The way that robotics goes through materials is deemed expense because they have to be repurchased every year due to either degradations or being destroyed or having to just completely new projects and whatnot. So it wouldn't qualify for capital expenditures.
All right, thank you, Executive Treasurer. Senator Mariama.
Senator Hirschberger somewhat answered my question, but I also just want to remind that kind of like Senator Steinheiser pointed out in the first place, while the percentages might be differences, the UPC serves a larger population of students as well, so that can be taken into account, which is the reason of this. But my question was mostly answered by Senator Hirschberger.
All right, thank you. Senator Monahan.
I just wanted to say that as much as I do believe it could help UPC, and I think UPC, everybody's saying is that it is correct. It is it reaches a larger constituency. I feel like if we keep stripping, like if we take this money away, we might actively impede their ability to do the things they want to do. Because it is I think Banky said it was a 20% cut to their budget, which is a lot. and I feel like it might impede their ability to, help the people that they do serve. That's all I've got on it.
All right. Do we have any more? Sorry, yes, Senator Steinheiser.
So Cam, when you answered my question, I heard you say that they replace these parts because they're destroyed or because of degradation every year. So to me, that sounds like a part that would go through CapEx, because when we have things that are damaged or need to be replenished, like for the next year, I understand that it's not a long-term purchase, but Senator Banky just said that they've been through CapEx before. I'm sorry it was such a horrible experience for them, I guess. But if they've done this before, maybe this is something that we can look at in the future. I don't know. I still believe in my motion, despite it being a large cut to robotics, specifically because of UPC's large constituency. Cam, I would like it if you could reply.
Yes, Executive Treasurer.
So it's really important to note what the difference between an expense and an actual asset that lives is. It's an expense and it can't be run through the capital expenditures account anymore because their intended lifespan is not more than a year. When they buy it, it's planned to be used up at the end of that year, and it's not meant to last longer than that. Capital expenditures are only for assets that are expected to last longer than the fiscal year.
All right, thank you, Executive Treasurer Ray. Do we have any other comments or discussion? Yes, Senator Steinheiser.
So I understand that. I guess my question would be, why aren't these parts expected to last more than 1 year? Maybe Senator Banky can answer that because he's involved with the organization.
First off, I'm not technically involved with the organization. I just know a lot of people who are. But the thing is like when they came in for CapEx, they were requesting, like, if it were a car, it'd be like the frame. Like it's the underlying piece that they attach everything else to, and like they can drill more holes in it. They can cut it into smaller pieces if something breaks. Like there's a lot they can do with it, and that's why it's going to be able to last a much longer term, as they can reuse and repurpose it. The rest of the budget is for getting things like motor controllers and things like that, where if something happens to it, it's fried and it goes in the garbage. So that's kind of the difference. Some of the things they can ask for CapEx for, and that would be the baseline structural components, but a lot of the electronics they cannot go through CapEx for.
All right, thank you, Senator Banky. Any more discussion on this matter? See. All right. Is there a second? Okay, great. If two people say motion to vote, I'm just gonna assume that's a second, just for future reference. All right. All in favor of moving, $1,800 from line 171 ongoing org functions from Valpo VU Robotics to UPC line 52 spring concert. Please vote at the exact same link that I sent before. I'll send it again. All right, looks like the motion does not pass. 12-13-1. Yes, Senator Mariama.
Senator Hirschberger, is the tier 1 slate being updated like currently?
Yes.
So the line 19, the 21 World Cup Championship, that registration fee that we just did a motion on, to what I can remember, it was originally $800 and the motion was to move. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I just wanted to make sure we were voting on the same things. All right, that's it.
Thank you, Senator Mariama. So yeah, moving on, Senator Zaki.
Yeah, so I have another motion that just kind of finishes up the one that I made previously. So that line in VU Robotics budget, line 18, for their World Championship registration fee, has $300 remaining in it. and I would like to motion to move the $300 from that line for the same reasons into line 51 of SALT's budget for their annual 5K. Their 5K is an event that benefits not just students or all our students, but also the Valparaiso University or Valparaiso community, and it's well attended. And they had submitted a form of concern asking for a little over $300 to finish the funding for that line. But this is all I could find. So.
All right, thank you, Senator Zaki. Is there a second? All right, yes, Senator Banky.
So I'd just like to point out that if this motion passes, we've gone from fully funding that line to giving it no funding. This is basically a competition that they go to, and we're not going to be removing all the funding from club tennis if that were still up for this week, or any of those other organizations that thrive on competitions, just because they may not make it to competition. Why does it make sense to totally remove funding from an organization just because they may not make it to competition? It seems unfair to target robotics in this way when we don't do that to literally any other organization.
Thank you, Senator Banky. Yes, Senator Zaki.
I do not intend to like come after robotics specifically. It was just this one line requires that they qualify for the national championship. And like Senator Hirschberger had said before, that makes them a perfect candidate for the unrestricted funds that we have. So I just think it would be wise, knowing that the organization SALT will be hosting this event next year, that we allocate the money towards that event. And then should the robotics team, fingers crossed, I'm rooting for them, make it to the championship, we can provide the funds that would to pay for their registration fee. It doesn't benefit them to have $300 of the $800 if they would have to ask for the remaining $500 from Senate in the fall, which is why I decided to pull another motion to get the $300 into a different line. They also have other competitions that they're guaranteed to compete at, fully funded for them to attend. So they still can function as an org, they still can compete, and if they do qualify, they can attend based off of the money they would request next year.
Thank you, Senator Zaki. Senator McMillan?
I just want to point out that if robotics is able to use the unrestricted funds, which they are to fund their line, then SALT is just as able to request $300 out of the unrestricted funds to finish their partially funded line and get the funding they need for that. I don't think it's right to completely cut a line out when another on the justification of fully funding another organization's line and then saying, well, robotics can just go to unrestricted funds. When SALT has a partially funded line, they can also go to the unrestricted funds to fully fund that line. I don't see the reasoning behind that.
Thank you, Senator McMillan. Senator Steinheiser?
SALT knows that event is going to happen. Robotics, unfortunately, does not know if they are going to make it to the World Championship. So that's, I think, the logic behind ISIS's motion.
Senator McMillan?
Respectfully, it doesn't really matter if it's speculative or not. It's a line in a budget. So SALT is just as capable of going and getting more money. And I don't see how it matters that, oh, well, maybe it won't happen, maybe it won't, or maybe it will. If SALT can request money that they need from the unrestricted funds, I don't see the point of cutting out money if it might not happen. I don't see the point behind that. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Senator Hirschberg?
So funding things that are not absolutely happening is what's got us in trouble in the past with overspending or over allocating to organizations. So I do think coming from the financial perspective, that it is best to put our definite resources into places that are for sure happening, regardless of looking at fully funding lines or thinking about unrestricted funds, that it is best that we put our financial resources towards events that we know for sure are happening and will benefit a large portion of our student body.
Thank you. Senator Zaki?
Yeah, I agree with what Senator Hirschberger just said. Also, I'm not personally on SALT, but I have friends that are, And I know that they start planning their 5K by reaching out to different businesses in the community and doing other things. They start that planning as early as September and October. So that's a line that is necessary for them to have as much money in as possible in order to host this event that happens in the spring. But yeah.
Thank you. Senator Banky?
So just to kind of play devil's advocate, right now with the whole COVID-19 pandemic going around, we have no idea if the school will even be open in the fall. Under the logic that we need to know that something is happening with absolute certainty before we fund it, how are we funding anything in the fall since we may not even be in school to have those events?
All right, Senator Mariama, I think you're the first person that actually had a comment.
I understand the point of that. This is based on the fact that this could not possibly happen in the future and this pandemic was unforeseen, but comparing the shutdown of the school and all of its ongoing processes to the chance that robotics doesn't make this qualification is like a super far stretch. And it's like not, and I understand your point was to just show another perspective of this, but that's really not very comparable at all to say, okay, if we're not going to fund this because they might not make this needed qualification, to then say, oh, why are we funding any of this? Because, oh, the government could go bankrupt and then they ask for all of the funding from the university. Like, it's just a non-ending argument that doesn't really make any sense to compare this situation to.
Great, thank you, Senator Mariama. Is there any other discussion on this motion, or do we have a motion to vote? Motion to vote, perhaps?
Senator Banky had a comment.
Oh, did he? Oh, I'm so sorry, Senator Banky. Yeah.
So again, like, I'm not making it the point to say that we should cut funding for the fall, but just to say that if we're going to be judging everything on how certain it is, that's really a flawed basis to make any funding decisions. And I'll point out again, just since it looks like this is going to be the last comment, this year they did already qualify to go to VEX championships, and this was their first year in operation. To say that they're going to go next year is not a stretch, even though it's the World Championships. They've gone already. This is something that they're very capable of doing, and it's something they can do next year.
All right, thank you very much, Senator Banky. All right, great. So we have a motion to vote. All right, all in favor of moving $300 from line 18 of Valpo Robotics to line 51 of SALT, their SALT annual 5K. Please vote. Should be up and available to vote. That's 26. The motion passes 16-9-1. All right, thank you. Yes, Senator Steinheiser.
My next motion is also on the sheet. It goes from Honor Council's line 85 hearing officers to Dance Marathon's line 58 org sponsored events. That's a general line, so if we do put the money in this line, they can disperse it throughout that category as they wish. It's $610. I understand that Honor Council wants to expand, but I don't understand why they would need to, because even if they had more investigators, investigators get paid case by case. If I'm not mistaken, they shouldn't really be seeking to have more cases. Dance Marathon, as we've seen throughout the coronavirus crisis, has still been a strong organization on our campus. They reached out to me, and I know they reached out to several senators specifically asking for budget bumps in this category. And so this would allow them to disperse that money how they wish. It's $610. It isn't as much as they asked for, but it does help.
All right, thank you, Senator Steinheiser. Is there a second? Great. Senator Parizo, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the reason they're requesting more is because they've had an uptick in cases this year, so investigators have had to do more work. So it's not necessarily that they're looking for more cases, it's just that they've had to take more on this year.
Thank you, Senator Parizo. Do we have any other comment? Yes, Senator Scheer.
I know a couple people that are on honor council or that like work for honor council, and they've made comments about like how backed up it is. So I think like Senator Parizo said, like it's not that they're looking for new cases; it's just they already have so many that this would just help with that process.
All right, thank you, Senator Scheer. Senator Mariano.
I think then this would be a good example of a use of the unrestricted funds is if they continue to have the same level of cases next year or an increase, that they can then get a proportionate amount of money from the unfunded to the exact number of cases that they're dealing with, which is a process they haven't had available to them in the past.
All right, thank you. Senator Steinheiser.
I also think this is kind of a case, it's similar to robotics, which is a motion that we just passed where an organization is saying this might happen. Oh, unrestricted fund would not be available for pay/stipends. All right, well, that changes what I was going to say.
Sorry, Senator Steinheiser, were you rescinding your motion or are you just amendment? Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to make an amendment to the motion. Let's take it from $610 to $350.
Is there a second there? All right. Is there any discussion on this amended motion? Seeing none, motion to vote. Is there a second? Great. All right. All in favor of moving $350 from line 85 of Honor Council to line 58 of Dance Marathon, please vote. We should have one more. There it is. All right. All right. The motion passes 15-11-0. All right. Yes, Senator Mariam.
I have a kind of question directed at the executive treasurer. Do we have historical data that is like quickly available for the Beacon for the amount of money it costs them to do their printing? And then also kind of like based on that, I'm trying to figure this out because I didn't think of this before, but there's always the problem of the Beacon having tons of books that are left over. So is there any way that we could get a number of, maybe excluding this year because of the extenuating circumstance, the amount of money they spend to print yearbooks every year?
So just to clarify, you're asking for the amount spent on yearbooks?
Yeah, maybe like 2 years ago, considering I don't know how they're dealing with that this year.
Okay, so with yearbooks, 2 years ago, so the 2017-2018 school year, they used all the money and they had to actually line item shift to adjust for the printing fees increase. Last year, they actually printed a little less, but the receipt was like, $2,000 under budget. And this year, it'd be hard to predict. They're sending in the receipt to me in May. So I could get a better answer then, but that's obviously not going to be available right now.
What was the actual budget amount from the year you referenced?
So 2017-2018 was $47,000.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Sorry, Senator Zaki, is your motion relevant to the one on the table, or?
There's no motion on the table.
Sorry, I didn't know there was a motion on the table.
Oh, sorry, that's my fault. I don't know why I assumed that. All right, Senator Zaki.
I have a motion and I'm not really sure if I can do this, so I'm gonna need Senator Hirschberger's and Finance's advice on this, but members of the UPC Executive Board reached out to me and saying that they had added 2 positions to their executive board after submitting their budget. They added a films chairman and a I think it's trips chairman to their executive board. Those are existing positions now. They've been filled. So I wanted to motion to move a total of $800 from the pot into line 21, which is stipends and payroll, because they had requested a total of $6,850 for that general block and had only received $5,450, so it would fit based off what they requested. Is it possible to motion to move money into just a general block instead of specific lines? I guess that's a point of information.
Yes, Senator Hirschberg.
Sorry, I didn't want to speak out of turn. Yes, you can do that. Yes, that's a short answer. Yes, you can do that.
Okay, thank you. So to clarify, my motion is to move $800 from the pot into line 121 of UPC's budget for stipends and payroll.
All right, is there a second? All right, yes. Senator, thank you. Senator Hirschberg, you had a comment?
I yield to Senator Steinheiser.
All right, thank you, Senator Steinheiser.
Thank you. Senator Zaki, would you be willing to move this money into line 52 instead of the stipends? Because I know UPC wanted to increase their concert funds, and I know $800 would still really help with that. They would still be able to move the money if possible, but I think allocating the money to that line would serve the greater student body a little bit better.
I'm willing to accept the friendly amendment, just with the caveat that I know they want to use that specific amount, so 400 for one chair and 400 for the other chair, to fund those positions. But whatever line it goes into, they'll have the ability to move that around. So I accept the friendly amendment.
All right. So the new amendment is 800 from the pot to line 52 of UPC. All right. Yes, Senator Hirschberg.
I'm much more comfortable with the amendment that Senator Steinheiser proposed, just because I feel uncomfortable funding things that weren't on their original budget. I feel like stipends is something that they would have known about ahead of time going into budgeting. And so this provides like more flexibility with that for the organization, but also it works better on our end to put it into a line that's already been supported by the Finance Committee and also by UPC.
All right, thank you. Is there any, yes, Senator Mariano?
I just have a concern based on obviously Senator Zaki isn't on the UPC executive board, but just the comment if their intention would be if that would be moved to the spring concert line and then just moved to pay for a stipend. That kind of defeats the purpose of putting it in the concert line. So I don't feel very comfortable moving money in there if we expect that their intention would then just be to move that money out and into a line for a stipend that wasn't included in their budget.
All right, thank you. Is there any other discussion?
Can I comment quickly?
Yes.
So I'm not on the executive board. I am an event assistant, so I will be abstaining from the vote. Just to clarify, the two positions were created new this year when they restructured their executive board, and they did that after they transitioned their new officers, which was only this past, I think, a week or two ago. So the new positions are different than the production manager and trips chair that exist. They have different responsibilities, and they have also a change in their constitution that they'll be proposing in the fall. That's just some background on that.
All right, thank you. Senator Steinheiser?
First, I'd like to say that Jessie just got a new Wi-Fi router, so that's probably why she left. Her Wi-Fi has not been very good. But I also wanted to say that UPC also did ask for a raise in their concert line. So while they asked for this amount of money for these two positions, they're going to have to make a hard choice between extra funding for the concert or funding these two positions. So I think that this isn't a given that they're going to give it to the two stipended positions. Especially since they reach out to so many of us and ask for this specific bump in the concert line.
Thank you, Senator Steinheiser. Is there any other discussion on this motion? Seeing none, is there a motion to vote? All right, thank you. All in favor of approving the motion of moving $800 from the pot to line 52 of UPC for their spring, it's called Spring Concert Headliner. Please vote using that same link. I'm sorry, just Senator Hirschberger left the chat, correct? Okay, so we only have 25 this time.
Is there any chance you can repost that link?
Yeah. All right, that's 25. The motion passes 17-8.
No, Jesse's here, so it should be 26. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, it is 20. The vote is 26. Thank you.
Can you repeat the number again?
17-8-1. All right. Do we have any other motions tonight? Since I know things might have been a little unclear before, I will allow if anything has come up. All right, seeing none, do we have a motion to vote on the slate? All right, I will accept that because I think everyone will agree. All right, all in favor of approving the slate as is, please use that same link to vote. And so just for clarification, we need a 7/8 vote for this, which out of 26 people is 23 votes. So it's very important everyone votes, please. We're waiting on 2 more people. If All right, well, it passes 24-1, and I will count 1. All right. Good job, everyone. Pat yourself on the back for a pretty, as Senator Zaki said, shortest tier 1 budgeting session ever at 53 minutes. They've been much worse, so congrats, everyone. Thank you for doing this and preparing and having good motions and discussions. We will be doing a little bit of reporting tonight. So yeah, Senator Jacobs.
So I just wanted to inform everybody that the Visitation Policy Committee is moving forward with student resolution or Senate resolution. If anybody is interested in co-sponsoring or helping out on that document, please let me know and I'll get you on that document. I'm hoping to have it done by exec meeting this Wednesday so that we can talk about it and possibly vote on it Monday at the last meeting. Because even though we're in the midst of a crisis right now and it might not be at the top of President Heckler's agenda, I would like it to be on the table over the summer so that we can discuss it and move forward with the discussion to possibly change this policy. So again, if you're interested, please let me know and I'll get you on that document. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator Jacobs. Yes, Senator Monahan.
So my committee and I met, and over the last week, we've interviewed all the candidates, and I have my recommendations for the Senate to vote on. So there are 4 positions we are tasked with filling. I usually would say we voted them as a slate, but there was one that didn't pass. So I'll go through them. I want to start with PRC. It was a 3-0 vote. Most of you guys know Chris. He's been doing a fabulous job. I see no reason to change that. Neither did anyone else in the committee. Chris, shout out to you. You're doing a phenomenal job. So that's the first vote, was 3-0 for Chris. The second position we filled was secretary, which Paige has been doing it for a while now, and nobody else can do it better than Paige. So that was also a 3-0 vote. Senator Hershberger asked for a point of information. Do I keep going or do I let her?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't see that. Yes, Senator Hershberger.
I just had a question. How many people are on the screening committee and if 3 is a quorum?
We looked it up. There was no, Dylan and I talked about this. There didn't seem to be a quorum. I emailed everybody. Nobody could make the meeting. I tried to keep everybody informed. I did the best that I could, but 3 was all we got.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to check.
Like I did the best I could on that one. The third position we filled was I'll put the names in the chat too for you, Mark. The third position was recommended by both Paige and Assistant Treasurer Jack Saputis. His name is Mark Lorenz. He was very good with the questions. Jackson interviewed him, asked him really good questions. He answered them well, and he's willing to assume the 2-year role that the treasurer does. So that was another 3-0 vote. The last position that we had to fill was the one that failed. And I'll give the majority opinion on this one. And according to Senate bylaws, if there is a dissenting member of the group, then Dylan will give the minority opinion for our committee, the dissenting opinion. So Steinheiser had a thing.
Oh, if you want to, yeah, Senator Hershberger.
That's me.
Sorry, sorry, I just saw him back to back.
If a candidate does not pass through the screening committee, are they presented to the student senate? I do not believe that is the case, as that is not the precedent we have followed in the past.
Yeah. We typically only take. I haven't read the screening bylaws in a minute, but we typically only take what the screening committee recommends as a committee. Or Parliamentarian Magira, do you have any insight on that?
Hi, yeah. Can you give me 1 second? I'm having sound issues.
No worries.
I only bring it up because only one person applied for the position, and we wanted to bring it to Senate just because we would either fill the role or we wouldn't fill the role. And that's the only reason I bring it up to Senate, is because if we choose not to screen the person, then we just wouldn't fill it. We just leave it open. We had a creative solution that we thought was worth bringing forward that we wanted to bring up. We thought was pretty good at solution. And Caitlin, you may be right. We just thought we'd bring it to the Senate to have them talk about it. If you'd rather not, we can just say, no, not worth talking about, and we can just not.
Yeah, so you're completely correct. We should discuss it because there is every right for the dissenting member to give that minority report.
Because he said, Dylan voted for the yes, we voted for the no, myself and Senator Von Segrin, and for good reason. We thought it was worth it, but if the senators don't think it's worth it or it's not in the bylaws, that's fine with me.
Still give the report, but we can't vote on it. We can only vote on somebody that screening recommends.
Yeah, no. So the problem was the person came into the meeting. I don't think they understood what the role was for. They came in talking as if they wanted to fill for a senator role because they acted like the role was a senator and didn't know anything about Robert's rules, or just did not seem like someone who would fit well with what the parliamentarian does and what they thought. And Dougal thought that we should fill the role because we would rather have a full executive board coming into the new year and they could have a chance to learn that. But I didn't think it was prudent to do.
All right, thank you. Senator Ogle, did you have?
He should be on it.
Yeah, I can speak to it a little bit. My internet's being a little wonky tonight, so if at any point I start breaking up, please let me know. But the recommendation that I thought would be good considering these atypical circumstances was that since the Senate will not be full and operational until a little ways into the fall, it may be more prudent to go ahead and attempt to fill the executive board to capacity, so that way there's more representation from the students with any business that needs to be attended to over the summer or the first few weeks that we're back in the fall. And this person, her name was Stephanie, and I don't have it pulled up in front of me. I don't remember her last name. It started with a B and it was really long. But she's also, in her interview, she said she was an RA. She said that she was on the executive board for Visa, and she demonstrated a lot of capacity for adaptive learning and wanted to bring a voice to international students. And what I was thinking was that because she demonstrated an ability to learn and a willingness to be open, I figured that with a good transition from Parliamentarian Magira and with the instruction of the newly elected president and vice president, I thought that she might be able to step into this role a little bit more, so that way there could be more of a voice on decisions that the executive board would have to make over the summer and in the first weeks of the fall.
All right, thank you, Senator Ogle. So we can.
Hey, Mark, can I say something?
Yes, Senator Magira. Or sorry,
that's okay. So for one thing, to respond to you, Senator Ogle, I think it also needs to go into regards of what the next president and vice president of the Student Senate also know about, like kind of running the meeting with Robert's Rules of Orders and the bylaws and being able to like help with the new parliamentarian. So it also, I feel like, goes to be like a big thing when thinking of taking someone in who kind of really doesn't have an idea.
Thank you. Senator Steinheiser?
Yeah, I would just like to speak on the role of the parliamentarian as the person who's going to be coming in next as president. I'm really confident in what Ben and I can do when it comes to parliamentary procedure, and I understand that Student Senate is supposed to have a component of learning. But I also think that it is so important for the next parliamentarian to have some kind of experience with parliamentary procedure before they jump into this role. Parliamentarian McGuire was a student senator for a year before this. Our last parliamentarian served his fraternity through parliamentary procedures, and the parliamentarian before him was an aide in the actual United States Senate. So the parliamentarian is supposed to hold student senate accountable when it comes to Robert's rules. And while I do think that there's room for growth in this position, it is incredibly important that they have some kind of experience. And I hope that the screening committee considers this in their future endeavors.
Thank you, Senator Steinheiser.
May I?
Yeah.
That is the reason that we voted no, and I recommended to my committee that we not screen her in because I did not believe she would fill the role. I did tell her that the best case for her would be to try to apply for a senator position because that seemed what she wanted to do more. But yeah, no, we only had, like, we all sort of agreed. We only had the dissenting opinion just because we wanted Senate to be able to hear this discussion instead of just not filling a role. We do have, we had a creative solution where we're going to look into emailing a few people, perhaps, some people at the job who might know about it, and get back to you guys next week. So those are the 3-0 votes we've got, and I guess we can vote on them as a slate then?
Yes, we can vote on them as a slate since the other person wasn't recommended by screening. So do we have a motion to vote on as a slate? All right, and a second. Great. All right, all in favor of, sorry, one second, I didn't clear the responses. All right, all in favor of approving Chris Grimpy for PRC, Paige Massesni for secretary, and Mark Lorenz for assistant treasurer for the 2020-2021 academic year, please vote now. Secretary Massesni, do we only have 25 senators now? Sorry, did someone drop out?
I thought I saw somebody leave, but I don't know off the top of my head. I can count right now if you want. Oh, Riley left.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you. All right, so the motion passes 25-0-0. All right, congratulations. And then moving on, President Brown.
Hello, everyone. So I just wanted to report a little bit more on Mark and I's conversation with President Heckler on Friday about the SR that was passed last week. I included some pretty detailed notes in the minutes, but I also wanted to allow for Vice President Young or the advisors to add in any other details. But essentially, President Heckler was very positive, responded very positively to the SR. He told us that it has gone directly to the executive management team, which is handling all the COVID response decisions. He said that we should expect to have a decision released to everyone at the university within 1 to 2 weeks. A lot of this has been part of an ongoing conversation over the past 5 weeks, but they were waiting to kind of hear some response about federal government funding and how that would affect things such as financial aid. He did say that the refund will not look exactly like the prorated proposal we offered. That is mainly due to the way that the university operates. It has a lot of fixed costs, so they can't exactly prorate it in the same way. But he did confirm that they are trying to free up as much as they can of what is possible to give back to students. As far as for like communication, we discussed a proposal of having weekly updates given to Student Senate through Dr. DeGraw as far as how the university is responding or working to respond to certain things. This was mainly because there's a concern about sending out too many emails, so we thought this might be something to at least try to work on. The only thing that I wanted to get feedback on is that he did mention that COO David Phelps could attend a Senate meeting if we think that is something that's valuable to explain some of the response from the university. If we could do, Mark, if we could do a quick vote on that, if that's something the Senate would be interested in. We don't know for sure if he would be able to attend, but next week would be the only, is our last meeting. So that would be when he would be able to, or that would be the time available for him to do that. So that's sort of the option, I guess.
All right, thank you. Thank you, President Brown. Yeah, we will do a vote. If you would please just use the same, maybe we could also do maybe a vote, General Assembly or Exec Board. I guess we wouldn't have time. Never mind. Forget what I said. Please vote using that link if you would like to potentially have COO David Phelps at our next meeting to give a short presentation on the university's operations and such. All right. Looks like an overwhelming yes. Doesn't have to be an exact count, but yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. I will reach out about getting that set up. Yes. So Senator Jacobs, I can talk a little bit more about that. So essentially, when we were talking about communication, there was a little bit of concern of whether all students would want weekly updates if there wasn't any decisions being made or important announcements. We thought that because Senate has kind of operated as a communicator to students about different things that are happening at the university, that might be a good point for that information to come through. It was kind of brought as a suggestion to see how it goes, and that we could encourage more communication from the university if we feel like the updates are not enough.
Thank you, President Brown. I also just wanted to add in, like, basically Senate can kind of act as a filter where kind of we get a lot more information than the rest of the student body. The student body still gets like the important information, but not to the point where they're like bombarded with emails. But then we can kind of hear stuff and say, oh yeah, as students, we know the rest of the student population would like to know that, so we can disseminate it ourselves or go through and inform the administration of that. So, yeah. Great. Do we have any other important reports that need to be announced to the whole group? If it's just something typical, you can put it in the minutes. Yeah, Dr. DeGraw.
Yeah, sorry about the typo in my chat. Yeah, so I have my first report related to that, since that was the request to do. So I thought I would, and really how we're approaching this, maybe to make it even, is that I review these with the president. That was the plan. So that's really me representing these directly from the president to you all, which might be a little different than me just deciding on my own what to update you all on. So if that makes a difference kind of on how that goes. So obviously we had the, President Heckler had the meeting with Vice President and President of Senate, and I kind of reviewed what Annika presented, and I believe that there was common understanding about what those next steps might be. The other thing that would be good for the Student Senate to know is that we have had, the administration has regular ongoing updates. We've had 2 phone calls with the Board of Trustees over the last 5 weeks. outlining what our COVID-19 response has been and our progress on that. And then we have a full meeting of the board this Friday, where we will also do that. We will also be talking with them. We've all started what we would say scenario or contingency planning for fall as to how and if and when we would reopen. So all the things that you guys, would we be in person? Would we be online? Would we be a mix of both? All of those things. There's a group of student affair or academic affairs people thinking about all the possibilities and what that might mean. And then I'm working with a group of folks to look at all the other contingency plans around that: housing, what time students return, athletics, all of those kinds of things. And those will be, those teams are being presented to the board and talked about what the scenarios are we're examining. And then that the board would be very much part of that decision moving forward when we get to the place where we have enough information to make that decision for fall. But just so you all know that we've been working on those scenarios and we'll be prepared for when we can make that decision. As soon as the order is lifted, the stay-at-home order, we have a phased move-in plan for people to be able to come back and get their things. That will be going out in an email, I think tomorrow, to the all students, faculty, and staff, where we phase it in by floors and buildings over a week so that we don't have everybody coming at the same time, and we can put safety measures in place, such as we're asking for masks, we're asking people not to bring more than 3 people with them, and that will allow us to have the staff, because we did furlough some of our residents' life staff. So that would be phased out, in between May 7th and May 21st for people to be able to come. Obviously, if they can't come during their assigned week, there's a way for them to request exceptions to that. It's really just to try to keep the social distancing and limit. We have 800 students who have things on campus to come get. I don't know if I've given that number before, but that's how many people have things in their room that need to come and move out. And then also midweek, late this week, the summer housing information will be sent out regarding which groups are giving preference for summer housing. It will be different this summer in the sense that because we have less staff, we will be limiting the summer housing number. And so that document will talk about our prioritizing of who would be allowed to stay on campus in the summer. And that's really related again to some of the COVID-19. We're going to have single rooms this summer for people, only 1 in a room, because we imagine the social distancing will need to continue. And the essential needs folks that are on campus now would be able to make that request into summer if they needed to, because we're not expecting that everything will be totally resolved. And if people have questions about the other prioritization, they can let us know that information. So that is the official report from the president. Question or? Yeah, so the focus, we are waiting until May 1 to make any decisions about focus. Again, we have contingencies for all possibilities there where we feel like we would really like to get students on campus, because we know of the deposited students that 30% of them have actually never been to campus. And so we feel important that they have an opportunity to do that, if at all possible. So again, we are running all kinds of contingency plans of, can we move it back into July? Would we do it online? Do we have the resources to create the online? Would we just do advising remotely and then move it all to fall, right, and have people come early? All of that, all those contingency, but we're waiting until May 1 because we will have a better sense of, we sent out a mailer and we don't know, even if we had it on campus, if people would be ready to come. And so we're waiting to see if they start signing up, which actually the first session is already filled up. So we have a sense that at least some folks are willing to come to campus if we have it on campus. And then we'll also have a better sense of where we are with the virus, frankly, about whether we'll be ready to bring people in June or if we should wait until July. So the executive management team will look at that again after May 1.
I think PRC Grimpy had a question.
Yeah, mine has to do with the like distribution of this.
Yep.
So has the university kind of said like how we should be wording this to the students? I mean, like, is there a document that they're going to give us, or are we having to formulate the entire document ourselves? Like, is there any guidance about that or no?
I think you'll have to ask that of President Brown and Vice President Young, because I wasn't there for the conversation, so I don't know if they talked about any more detail beyond my report. I'm not we are not planning to present anything in writing, but that may be, I mean, it's for you all to decide how to disseminate from there. So I don't know if they had more conversation with the president about that piece.
Sorry, Chris, do you mean Dr. DeGraw's report like today, or just what we?
Yeah, I took. Go
Sorry.
ahead.
I was just they'll also be sending all this information out. It's not on Senate to like distribute all this information.
Yeah, that's where I kind of have a concern, because like the part about the weekly communications, so like who is giving that out, and exactly like what is being talked about in those, like if is Dr. DeGraw's report tonight, is that the weekly report for this week?
This is the weekly report, and Mark, I would disagree, because some of this information we would not be sending out to the whole student body about the board stuff.
Right.
I think you guys were asking for more kind of detailed information, and then, so some of this would go out to them, but not all of it, I guess.
Sorry, I meant the specifics of like the move-in or taking stuff. Like they'll send that information out formally, but it's up to us and how you. So that's the point of, we can pick the things that we think students are going to be interested in or need to know. It'll all go in our minutes, of course. So it'll be there, which is publicly accessible, but up past that, it's kind of up to students. Student senators are free to share it. And then we're also free to share it in other ways. So if that answers your question.
Thank you.
All right. Sorry, Dr. DeGraw, I didn't mean to.
Please, go ahead. No, that's absolutely right.
All right, Senator Steinheiser has a question or a point.
Yeah, I do have a point. I think it's a lot to expect of Chris to do this. I know each individual senator can share what they want, but to have a centralized message is really important. So I think everybody should do what they can to support Chris in what he's doing to share this. And I know we'll probably discuss this in the executive board meetings, but please make sure you guys are sharing everything that Chris is making, because this is the communication that the student body asked for. This is on us now. So it's really important.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I totally agree. Definitely share everything that PRC Grimpy makes and whatnot. But it's also not a requirement that we have to share all this. Like students may not necessarily care about all the information that we get. So we are kind of a filter to say this is the most interesting stuff. But yeah, thank you, Senator Steinheiser. Anything else? Looks like no more questions. Thank you, Dr. DeGraw.
Sure.
All right. Great. Do we have any last minute notes or reports? I don't see any yet. So I will just say next meeting is planned to be our last for the semester. We potentially, if an emergency comes up, we could have one on that following Monday, May 4th. But hopefully that won't happen. So next week we'll be getting some last minute business done. We'll be doing swear-ins. So yeah, I just want to thank everyone for a great meeting tonight. Congratulate you. And I also want to congratulate Senator Steinheiser and Senator Jacobs. They will be sworn in next week as President and Vice President of Student Senate, respectively. So that will be very exciting. So congratulations to everybody making it almost through the year.
Mark, I have a question real quick.
Yes.
Are we swearing in the new exec as well next meeting? And question for you, if I could potentially find someone to fill that role and have the committee meet and everything, is that still a possibility or no? I have someone in mind who I think would be voted in very quickly by the Senate. I think would be a very good choice.
So I'll potentially, if not, it could be voted on by the exec board afterwards. But I can discuss that with President Brown.
I mean, I'll email you guys about it when I have everything done. I'll keep you guys in the loop.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Well, like I said, congratulations, everyone. Thanks for a great meeting tonight. And I will be sending out more information about next week's meeting. So thank you. And meeting adjourned. Bye, everyone.